Hi, everyone. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Brianne. I run the youth usually on Sunday mornings, and sometimes I lead worship here, so you might have seen me up here as well. My plan for the sermon this morning is to run things a little bit closer to how I would run youth on a Sunday, because when I asked the young people for their feedback on all-age services, that's what they said that they would prefer. So I'm going to try and make it a bit more interactive and run it a bit more like I would run youth, but then I'm going to add in sort of mini sermon style things so that it's not all just that. So we'll see how that goes. This week we're going to be looking at salt and light. So I'm going to split up that part of Matthew 5 and start off with a section on salt and then finish with a section on light and then kind of conclude it all up together. So the first thing I want to do is read out Matthew 5:13. You are the salt of the earth, but if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet. So the first thing I want to do is I've got 7 wonderful volunteers who have agreed to come up with me, so I'm going to invite them up just now. And we are going to play a game. So these guys are all going to hold one of these each, and they're not going to show you what they say. Maybe just stand along the steps so you can stand along and people can still see. And the question I'm going to ask, if you can try and not show the audience what is on the sheets of paper. The question that I'm going to ask is, there should be 7. Has anybody got 2 stuck together? We'll see what's there. Possibly not. You might be fine. You might be off the hook. But we'll see. There should be 7, but we'll see. So the question I want to ask the congregation is, what was salt used for in ancient Israel? So we've got the answers all lined up along here, and I just want you to shout out, and if your answer is correct, whoever has it will turn it around and we'll all be very pleased. So can anyone give me a guess as to what salt was used for in ancient Israel? Preservatives? Preserving things? Hey! Disinfecting? Someone got that? Disinfectant is one of them, so that might... Yep. Awesome. Anything else? Hey! That's kind of in with preservative, yep. I could give offering, I could give you that. Someone has currency and offering. And that isn't one that I've got, but it could probably mix in with disinfecting and offering and stuff, yep. Yep, currency and offering, I think, is one of them that we've got on. It's not one that I've got. Who's still left? Disinfectant's already round, I think. Yeah, we've got 2 left. Fertilizer, hey! Can anyone guess what the last one might be? The last one is hardening soil. So for flat roofs or playgrounds or places of public gathering. Thank you very much. You can just place those down. I will invite you back up for the next answer. So it was used for flavour, fertilizer, preservative, disinfectant, which would be for wounds and stuff, hardening soil, or currency and offerings. Other ways that we know salt can be used now is for melting snow and ice, dyeing textiles, pottery production, and softening water. I will kindly ask that nobody ask me for the finer details on any of those things, because my Google search did not go that deep. But apparently those are things that salt is used for. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to leave you in your discussion groups just for 3 or 4 minutes, and I've got 2 questions. which will come up on the screen. So what do you think it means that you are the salt of the earth? And the section that says, if salt has lost its taste, what do you think of this, given the many uses that we've seen that salt has? So I'm just going to leave you for 3 or 4 minutes to have a chat about those things, and I'll come back up and we'll move on a wee bit, and I'll give you some of my thoughts. I'm going to ask you to just wrap up your conversations just now. Okay, not to worry, I'm not going to go round the tables and ask everyone to tell me what you spoke about, because if you're anything like me in group work, it was nothing to do with the questions. But I am just going to give you some thoughts that I had when I was reading over this again and trying to think about it. So what I usually hear when I hear this verse spoken about, or even just in casual conversation about it, is something along the lines of Christians being like the flavour in a world that is otherwise bland. Or has anyone else heard that one before? I think that's usually what I would hear. And I'm not necessarily saying that's not the case, because I think it can be true. I think that as followers of Jesus, we can bring something special into situations or into communities that otherwise wouldn't be there. But I like to look at other ways of thinking about stuff and see if I can see something different or something deeper than what I had seen before. The first thing that I thought of was that if there are so many uses for salt, then is losing its taste really the end of the world? Is it really that bad a thing? Because it can do so much else. The interesting thing that stuck out to me as well was that when I was reading it, one of the uses for salt is to harden soil, where there's like playgrounds or places for public gathering. So one of the uses for salt is literally for it to be trampled under your feet. So when it says it's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled under people's feet, is it still useful then? Is it? And I'm not like, I feel like the be-all and end-all is not how useful we are as people. But it does seem that that is the focus on this section, is about your kind of use or effectiveness, I suppose, is what it seems to be talking about. So even when it's thrown underfoot and trampled on, it's still effective, it's still doing something. So as far as I can see, on first read, it looks like this is a potentially negative thing, but it might not be. Maybe Jesus is saying that as disciples, we can't lose our usefulness. We can't be useless. We can't lose our effectiveness as disciples. As disciples of Jesus, we are the salt of the earth regardless, even if we've lost our flavour and been trampled into the earth. Useful how? I don't know. What is useful for the world tends to change. We don't always have the same struggles, generation to generation, country to country, people group to people group, individual to individual. Those struggles or issues change all the time. But regardless of the need, I think that Christians can be Jesus in those situations. We can love like Jesus loved. And if we're doing that, I think we'll always be living out the kingdom to those around us. So perhaps that's what people mean when they say that Christians bring flavour to the world. Maybe we can bring radical love into a world that is often conditional love is the thing, but we can bring God's radical love. And maybe that's what being the salt of the earth is. Maybe it's not. I could just be making that up, but it was just some thoughts that I had when I was thinking about this section. So the next thing I want to look at is light. What about light? So I need 6 volunteers to come back up, please, because we have the next game that is the same game again. If you can pass them out. That purple one will come off. Thank you. And this time, what I want you to think about as they're getting passed around is what has light been historically used to symbolize? So what was it used to symbolize in the Old Testament and the New Testament? Light. Can anyone give me a shout out? We could go knowledge. Knowledge is one. That's yeah. Hope. Probably true, but it's not on my piece of paper. It's also not on my piece of paper, but it could probably fit into other ones here. I heard two at the same time there, sorry. Divine revelation, I have down. That could probably go under guidance, yeah. Yep, goodness, yep. Purity, yep. How many we got left? 2. 3. You're probably fitting into something else here as well, possibly. Can we, any last guesses before I just get them to turn around? Oh. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about later after you have had your discussion. Glory, not glory yet, no. Okay, if you want to just turn them around. We have God's presence, we have truth. So we've got purity, truth, knowledge, divine revelation, God's presence, and goodness. So things like glory and life and all that probably would fit somehow into these ones as well. But that's generally things that throughout the Old and the New Testaments have been used. Light has been used to symbolize. Thank you very much from wonderful volunteers. You can just place them down somewhere. Very useful. So we're just going to go into a second few minutes of discussion. And this time the discussion questions are, what do you think that it means to be the light of the world? And how do you think that that connects with us being the salt of the earth? So what do you think it means that we are the light of the world? And how do you think that connects with us being the salt of the earth? If I can ask that you wind your conversations towards an end. So when I thought about this section, I was reminded of an old youth activity that I haven't done with St. John's, but I've done with previous churches, where we used to switch off all the lights and had one person with a tea light lit. And that would symbolise that they had become a Christian or knew God. And then they would go to somebody else and they would light that person's tea light. And then they would light someone else's, who would light someone else's. And then eventually the whole room or the whole world would be lit up. And it would be brought out of darkness. What that youth activity shows us, that as disciples, our place is in the light of God's kingdom, which is pure and divine and good, and all of those descriptors that we had earlier, but also that we can be that light for other people. Interestingly, Jesus is known as the light of the world as well. We also see that we don't want to cover up that light because it allows people to see the good works that we're doing. Seeing us be the salt of the earth. The problem could be that that light shows everything, not just good works. So Jesus needs to remain our focus. And what he would do and the love that he showed people should always inspire us or inform how we live our lives. Because I think that's what light is. When we become disciples of Jesus, we become the salt of the earth. And when we become the salt of the earth, we become the light of the world. And we love like Jesus loves. I know I'm a bit like a broken record when it comes to social justice. I'm always harping on about it. It's my thing. But it makes me really sad when I see people who loudly claim to follow Jesus also being the same people who exclude people from his kingdom because of various reasons like race or class or gender identity or sexuality, by claiming that how they live their lives or how they identify themselves is wrong. Because that doesn't make people want to change, if they even could. It makes people feel judged, less than, unwelcome, and unloved. And in my opinion, that's not light, that's just darkness with a mustache on. But we've found ourselves back at love again. Back to being Jesus in people's lives. And back to living out God's radical love for humankind. Bringing God's kingdom here. And I think that's what light is. That's what being the light of the world is. I'm going to just move on to a conclusion just now. And I guess what I'm saying is that maybe salt is the good work which spreads light. And I'm really excited at the idea of that we've now opened the Lowport Centre as a community centre because we're having church here, so it's like we're a beacon in the town now, a beacon of light in the town. And how much light can be shed in the town with this building now that we're here. Inviting people here, having youth clubs here, the AAs here, local businesses, counselling, various groups that are hiring the place out. And I think that is being salt and light. St. John's Church and Lowport Centre have the varied usefulness of salt, and as such, shine the light that we have as disciples being Jesus in a community out to the whole town. And I think that's really cool. It makes me feel really happy to be here, and I look forward to seeing how we grow now that we're in here and how much light we can be. So I'm just going to finish off. I think everyone else is about to come up the stairs, and the worship band will come up and we'll do the last song together. But my final thoughts are, for we are salt, what it means that we are the salt of the earth, is that as disciples, we're never useless. We always have a use and we can always be effective. And for we are light, as disciples, we shine the light of God out to those around us, and that light looks like love, goodness, and God's presence. That was just my thoughts on everything, but I hope that you had some interesting conversations. If anyone wants to share any revelations with me after the service, then I'm very pleased to hear them. Thank you very much for bearing with me today. I'm just going to invite the worship band up for the last song.